everyone, and welcome back to this section of the virtual symposium. My name is Zinachidi Mbanefo, and I'm here with Afam Mbanefo, former Commissioner for Agriculture, Mechanization, Processing and Export in Anambra State, Nigeria. He then moved on to Commissioner for Youth Empowerment and Creative Economy, and he's most recently been made Commissioner for Transport in Anambra State, Nigeria as well. And he also happens to be my dad. So today, we're going to be talking about climate change in Igboland. First off, I think it's important to note that climate change has been put under this blanket of being a westernized problem, especially in media. When I have learned about climate change in school, or seen climate change information on social media online, it's always to do with deforestation in Scandinavian countries, in Iceland, in Greenland, or ice caps melting in the North Pole or in Antarctica. I think it's important to note that climate change is having a disproportionate effect in Africa and in, more importantly, what we're talking about in Nigeria and in Igboland. So my first question, Dad, is for people who don't know, how is climate change affecting Igboland?
Thanks very much, Kedu. That's pretty nice having me on this very episode. Climate change, as we know, in Igboland, as you said, in Anambra, Nigeria, we have two major seasons, rainy season and dry season. And we're faced with a lot of issues to do with both human-induced issues to do with climate change. We're faced with flood, erosion, faced with also a lot of factories that emit gases. For example, in Nnewi, where we come from, we have a lot of industries that emit incredible gases. But, there are things happening around that begin to show that the climate change is real. And even the farmers in the suburb, in the communities, are adapting to a few changes. Some of them don't even know why. They said to you that the world is changing, but they probably wouldn't know what's happening.
Yeah, definitely.
The beauty of it is the world keeps changing, so they adapt to these changes as they come. I'll give you an example. There are parts of Anambra State here where during the dry season, you see incredible flood coming through the agrarian locations, the lowland locations, and they know and they can plan better. Mm-hmm. So they plant when and harvest earlier. So you have less post-harvest losses. So they plant early and harvest early. And as the flood fills the whole place, everybody recedes to their homes. And then as the flood is receding, they started planting immediately. So that's what they do. But also issues of individuals who build houses all over the place. People are building houses, people are growing, the world is getting more global and metropolitan in some areas, major areas of the city. Some of the places that we used to call village, the concept of that village, of getting in and you see bare land, trees everywhere, green environment is literally, going away.
Yeah.
Now, when you say village, you come to my hometown, Nnewi, and you say it's
not.
You see properties everywhere,
Yeah.
and people the whole place, tiring the whole compound without actually having what you used to call omi or catchment pit, and then you find out that every water coming through homes find their way out. And they don't find their water has its own pathway. If it doesn't find its own pathway, what happens is they begin to cause erosion. And so it's a concept that Ndi Igbo, Ndi Anambra, Ndi Nigeria, are getting more sensitized about that. Matter of fact, some Igbo entrepreneurs are now going into urban farming practice. It's climate compatible businesses are coming up. Individuals are now investing going into agriculture, core agriculture, investing in real agriculture across the whole value chain. People go into rice, into yam production, to processing, name it. People are now also investing in renewable energy facilities and technology. To help solve the problem without even knowing what they're trying to solve.
Yeah.
But I think the need is actually driving the wants now, if you see what I mean. So it's a cycle that everybody must adapt to. A lot of things will lead to that, and I'm sure we'll discuss that as we go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's important as well. You were saying about people are fighting something they don't really understand well, and they know what it is in their own terms. But if you say climate change to most of them, they won't really. It could be poorly understood because no one really has that education to say, oh, this is climate change, this is global warming, this is what this is. Yeah, I think that's something we'll talk about later on. But another thing I wanted to mention is that we talked about flooding, we talked about erosions. I also wanted to talk about deforestation and how deforestation is having an impact in Igboland and how you're trying to combat that.
Okay, like I just said earlier on, in the olden days or years back, environments are not as metropolitan as they are today. People are coming back, people in diaspora, people are, young guys are coming up, youths, averagely, youths now are between the age of 18 and 35, and some of them are building houses. Some of them are getting married and having kids and all those stuff, And so what's happening is the small space land that we have in the environment, people are building on them. Now, the green is gradually fading away. There are areas in the state, in the agrarian location, Anambra East, Anambra West, Anambra, North. You have good mass land agrarian location, we call them. And those are environments you can see people plant. But now, to actually deal with this very issue, you would see there are locations in probably like in Ihiela where you have like forest reserve and the rest of them, and people are just basically cutting the trees and they're not replanting. But people are doing a lot in that area now to do what they call, they started with palm to palm, just to replace palms with the old ones and stuff like that. But the conscious effort or deliberate effort to see us understand where we must plant trees and don't cut down these trees is something that we all need to put a lot more effort in doing. Anambra State, I think during my time in Agric, we did a blueprint in agriculture, and we understood that Anambra State soil, alluvial soil, is quite very soft. We easily get eroded, and that's why the government started doing a lot on stormwater channels to see possibility of channeling water very well, and also planting trees and shrubs in all homes, getting some catchment pits in every home so that even when this water comes, it can hold the water. Realistically, in Igboland, we really do have huge, massive agrarian land, cultivable land, they call it. So what really happens is, that is required is constant capacity, constant training that will get our people to know how to plant and how to get the best yield. which is really where some energy and target have to be directed to. So deforestation, as I said, is a huge area that needs to be spoken about. Sensitization needs to happen in those areas. Then utilizing economic trees to try and help to generate this to get the situation to be right. As a matter of fact, as you know, I think FAO some time ago they were saying that the population of the world would double by 2050, and so we have to do something. As the population is increasing, we need to actually try and equate it with the production that we're doing in this part of the world. There was a study by the International Food Policy and Research Institute that was also saying that despite all the efforts to improve food security by the international community, they have not actually been able to standardize the production. I mean, it's basically whilst they're producing and the end user and people are feeding on those productions, it's been leveling. It hasn't actually everything remained constant. So the issue that we will be tackling in this part of the world is, what do we do differently? How do we do things differently to be able to, and one of the things that we need to do differently is to begin some huge sensitization and capacity building for our Igbo people. We are so entrepreneurial. The spirit is very high. So just show me what I can do to make money, and show me what I can do. I believe during the Civil War, it was just like that. People were living, people were doing everything to make sure they live. So that's really what I suppose we all need to target.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that a lot of Igbo people are willing to help, willing to do whatever they can, but they just need the education of climate change and to be told this is how, for example, for farmers, this is how we adapt to what's happening in the world right now. And I think it is very, very important. That's leading me on to my next thoughts. It's very important to be educated about climate change, especially the agricultural sector, because to be honest with you, they are the jobs that climate change will hurt the most, if we're being honest. And I think as well as like agriculture, the agricultural sector, citizens alike should still be educated, because at the end of the day, there's things that they can do in their homes to limit the climate change. Like, for example, like homestead farming, like they can start farming at home, and then, it decreases that fast food cycle. Do you know what I mean?
There's what we refer to smart agriculture, climate smart agriculture. Looking at it from a very smart way, where it has to be an integrated approach, to adapting these various agricultural methods to ensure real food security and substantial production. For homes, we've analyzed this stuff very well, and realistically, homes in the good old days, people go to the back of their houses and plant vegetables, plant fruit. When we were growing up, we have cocoa fruits everywhere. We have mango, we have pepper, we have mom can always go to the back garden and just pluck stuff and make food for us without going to the market. And averagely, statistically, actually, you find that most homes spend nothing less than 500 to 1,000 naira averagely every week on vegetables and fruits. Now, if you check the population, you would see the amount of capital expenditures going out of homes within this period. And for every reason, there's no reason why we shouldn't go back to that culture of doing homestead farming. Backyard, we call it Ubu Azuno, where everybody can go to the. I've started that. I have my fish farm, little farms. So you remember, we don't have to buy fish anywhere. You want to roast your fish, you want to eat your fish pepper soup. You could have them when you want it. I mean, you've enjoyed that very stuff. So I think that integrated solution will be what we need to do. The issues within our environment that has to do with deforestation, like you just mentioned, renewable energy, emission issues, recycling of food, water waste management. These are the things that we think we need to properly sensitize our people to begin to think on how to save the climate or save the earth, because every effort helps to relieve that. And I'm not too sure how the world is doing with carbon emission and the rest of them, because if that's real and they're actually working hard on that to save the environment, I think a lot of industries in the environment should now start testing for emission, know exactly how that can help, especially in Igboland, in this environment. But you got to fit this tomato first before these things begin. To everybody,
Yeah, I think that's I really agree. I think that,
and because in this environment we have the land mass is not as big as what you could find in the north. So you find that the land that's available, the cultivable land available, should be taken very seriously. That's why professional capacity and exposure to agricultural practices and best practices must really solidly followed up. Whilst I was in agri, we looked at various options. We looked at hydroponic, aquaponic solution. And that's what a lot of few homes have started that, and few farms. So you can, in one plot of land, you can have your hydroponic or aquaponic and integrate that with fish production, with your vegetable and grass, whatever, fruit production. And that can go really good. People would enjoy having such facilities in the environment, and that will begin to feed some environment. So you mustn't plant on the soil. You can plant on water. We call it precision agriculture. That's smart agriculture, as I mentioned. So you specifically plan it and know what dose of food and stuff that you give to, we call it food, give it to the plant to grow.
Yeah. I think I agree. I think that homestead farming is the way up in Igboland, to be honest with you, because that's the way. Even besides climate change, if we're talking just about Igbo people, it's another way to make money. If we're being like that,
Woman is so entrepreneurial. We go into things, just like I mentioned earlier on, the climate compatible business opportunities are there. And the Igbo man, we don't waste time. Once we see the opportunity, we go into it. So sensitization, matter of fact, when I started in agri, by 2015, we were, youth participation was about 8-9%. But by 2017, 2018, we were almost about 22-23% of youth participation in agriculture. And these guys, when they come in good.
Yeah.
They come in good. So, and then tapping into some of the grants and financial help that are available by the state, the government, and other World Bank and African Development Bank, Agri Development, and the rest of them, step into help drive this production cycle. So they've given a real boost to this area that we're actually talking about now. So when the young Igbo boy or young Igbo man or Igbo man and woman gets into this and have a clear understanding of how they can produce self-sufficiency and also enough to take out to help with the food security in the environment, it goes a long way to help us And the Igbo man obviously has seen that dependence in oil is obviously fading away right now.
Yeah.
Even COVID available now in the environment, the pandemic is obviously telling everybody you must step back and look at things, not just looking at things that you can import, but also look at things you can process, produce, add flavor to what you're doing. And that's what the Igbo man is good at. And trust me, we are good and we will do it better.
Yeah. From what you were saying about talking about youth, I think my next question is going to be how you can get the youth to enforce climate change action, because obviously in London, I wasn't really aware of how big climate change was until maybe like last year or 2 years ago, because of all the people, like the youth action starting to make noise and starting to protest towards the government, saying we need to do something about climate change and stuff like Greta Thunberg and things like that. So even people who are not in the agricultural sector, how do you think that you can get youth to start learning and enforcing climate change action in their own lives?
Yeah, I think, come to think of it, I think we need to look at various facets and approach that we're going to use to deal with this. One will be probably starting from an environment where the sensitization is already done and it's all happening. For example, in UK, where you have a lot of Igbo youth groups, right, who understand climate change, can begin to speak to the environment that is still developing or the knowledge is still coming. Now, locally in the environment as well, like in our environment here, likes of the major communication channels into the communities, like the churches, the traditional rulers, and the government should increase their efforts in sensitizing the youth and the environment. And lastly would be the financial sector, because when the government comes, government designs and puts policy and also helps as much as they can't do everything. Then the private sector now looks at the policy, looks at what the achievables within the policy, and they take that on and begin to scope and drive the environment, because environment is basically driven by the private sector, as it is, the middle class, the private sector, and the upcoming youths, small businesses they trickle the economy, and that's what really drives the economy. So you would see if we're able to galvanize this, which is happening, but some of these things are happening without actually knowing that they're happening. You know, we have in Igboland here in Anambra, you have various youth organizations that are set out for religious, for social, for economic reasons and stuff like that. These youths come together, and once these things are enforced or are introduced, they tend to take that on once it makes sense to them. And climate change makes sense to everybody. Yeah. I mean, in the environment now, you find out that during the rainy season, sometimes you find there won't be much rain. Why is that happening? Or it doesn't come as early as it used to come. Farmers will keep waiting for it to come. When it comes, everybody's rushing to the farm to start doing something, you know. And then by the time they're thinking they're harvesting, if the environment decides to get negative, floods everywhere, you know. So this issue of smart agriculture, climate smart agriculture, is the term that we need to actually use to look at the precision side of developing agriculture, which means we need to start looking at planting outside of these comfort zone of, the youths can get that on. There are a lot of technologies now, mechanizations available to make sure that when you plant, you get a proper yield. And also, to help with that will be to look at post-harvest losses and how to do it well. there's a program we started some time ago that when I was in Agric that we call it Healthy Farmer, Healthy Food. I hope I'm not diverting, but this is what it is basically where the farmer the health of the farmer should be considered very well to be able to produce a healthy farm. So many things need to be done in terms of training the farmer. When you're building the capacity of the farmer, they need to know what sort of chemicals they use that are hazardous to them and how best they could use it. Find out what actually harms these farmers, because you find out that when they are infected from one thing or the other, they don't obviously concentrate more on their farms, and then things begin to production reduces and stuff like that. So that's the areas that World Bank and all those programs should actually put in some more energy and look at those concepts, develop a concept on that should be driven from the health and agri sector to make sure that the health of the farmer is actually seriously looked into so that they can produce more.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Because it's not just asking you to produce, you want to have increased yield in this or that, or climate change done this or that or that. So sensitization should come across the whole sphere. As you're looking at the environment, as you're looking at the flood control, water channel, if you're looking at the best practices to grow, you also need to look at the health of these guys to make sure that the trainings you're giving them, they're using the proper method, they're training up themselves, they're eating healthy, they're using the chemicals that are hazardous to the soil, and they know exactly when to apply things and the rest of them. And then probably going more into organic production. That's where to go. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think, do you have any final thoughts before we close?
Yes, I think precisely we just need to get our people, Igbo, to think seriously on building capacity on climate smart agriculture. The middle class, the young, the youths, and also be able to now take some time to see where they can start small and they can grow. The environment is getting seriously changing and the trend is changing, and therefore we must adapt to the change. Every Igbo man must look at the environment and tap into the opportunities of the moment. And I know we will do it. I know some of us have started doing it. These opportunities must be practical business opportunities that will drive Igbo. Follow the trend and to that next level. We all work together to achieve that. The youths in general, everybody to key in, everybody to be sensitized as much as we can sensitize ourselves. Just like I said, let the Homestead Farm give us a huge boost so we can all feed very well. The stomach infrastructure taken care of, and then we can all come out to do the bigger ones. That's really what I can leave behind for now. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. You've summed it up perfectly. I think that's it. Thank you very much for joining me.
I'm hoping that the little stuff, the little pots that we'll put behind the gardens there to plant tomatoes and leaves, that they will all grow very well, and you nurture them very well so that they can grow very well for us.
Yeah, definitely.
Stuff as well, yeah?
Yeah.
Right,
okay.
yeah.
Thank you for joining me. Thank you so much.